Hi, this is Tracy with Apdig, the genuine original RX Performance, and we're doing an install on a 2016 Ecoboost. This is a 3.5 liter. The 2.7 will install the same way. From 2015 up, the grill no longer opens with the hood, so we mount off of this bolt of the coolant expansion tank. You should receive two bracket pieces that are bolted together to allow you to fit the unit just as you see it right here. Make sure when you're putting the clamp onto the can that you use a flat blade screwdriver and spread it so you don't scrape the finish off the can. And we've gone ahead and installed this ahead of time so we're ready. I also want to point out that you do not change or take off any of these fittings. This is all part of the evaporative emissions, and we are not altering or touching this in any way. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to locate the clean side here, and you'll press a tab right here. This gray tab releases the fittings, and we're going to take this loose from the turbo inlet and the valve cover on the driver's side. You'll notice that there is a MAP sensor used to detect pressure and flow. You simply pull the tabs on the side and pop that out, and you're going to set this entire stock housing aside if you wish to ever put it back to stock. So we're going to set this aside, and also when we do the drilling, we're including two of these caps made out of the same material that the tubes are where we drill. So if you want to go back to stock, you can simply remove the fittings and put these caps in and make it appear stock again. Now we're going to run a hose from, because we're not doing the clean side separator installation today, we're going to run a piece of hose from the PCV on this side into a 90-degree fitting, and that's going to run into the filtered side of the air box. We've already drilled, tapped, and installed our 90-degree. You should receive a 3/8 NPT tap with your system, and just like this, and this is how you're going to be cutting the threads. So for right now, we're going to take one of the 90-degree fittings, and if you want to put a little grease or WD-40, it helps to get this on. That is going to snap in place of the stock line there, and simply slide on here. No clamps are needed, and we're going to be reinstalling when the cover's on this stock cap. At a later date, he's going to do the clean side separator. Now, this is going to, this sensor, as you can see, has a little O-ring barb on it. You're going to take this assembly here, and this T is going to go in line on the center hose, which eventually is going to connect there. So for right now, we're going to push that on. We're going to take our easy clamp, and I like to take a pliers and squeeze it just slightly, not too much so you don't break it. We want to make sure that we have clamped this good. So let me grab a pliers quick. And we're going to place this make sure you get that clamp in place. And just gently squeeze it. And we're secure. All right. Now we're going to address the connection here. And we're going to come from the center of the can. We're going to take a 90-degree fitting here. We're going to remove this line. This is our intake manifold vacuum source. This is the foul or the dirty side where the vapor is going to come from. And you can see inside here, this is soaked with oil where it's been ingesting. And you're going to set that aside as well, since we give you stock fittings to replace these. We're going to take this end, and again, you can put a little WD-40 or grease or spit. Help that go on. And we're going to want to route this underneath the throttle body and come up here so the cover can still fit unobstructed. Make sure that, and that simply snaps on. Now we have our sensor here that has to tee in, and we're simply going to cut this center line and place this tee in line. Again, no clamps are needed on these. It will not come apart. And then this prevents a check engine light from coming on. Just make sure everything's secure and together, and that takes care of the foul side connection. Next, we're going to do our primary evacuation line. And your lines may come pre-cut. Some people prefer to do the routing themselves. So we're cutting these as we line it up. This line, cut a section. You're going to put your check valves. One is going to go in line on this tube. It has an arrow on it. Blow through. Make sure that the flow is correct. And we want this to be pointing, flowing away from the can. Take your stub, slide that on as well. That's going to connect to one of the outlets, one of the outer fittings. And we're going to route this in. And we're sending a total of 1, 2, 3 90-degree fittings and 1 straight fitting. We used to do this with a straight fitting here on the earlier models, but due to where we're mounting the can, we're now doing this with a 90. And get it on there good and tight, snaps into place, and we're complete there. So for now, we have completed one of the evacuation sides that uses the intake manifold. But more importantly, we need a secondary evacuation source. So we're going to use the barb on this turbo inlet line that we took off of the original stock clean side or fresh side line. And that's going to take a straight connector. We're going to take a piece of hose. We're going to cut it. We're going to place a T in here because we're going to draw the suction from both turbo inlet tubes. And these are the turbo inlet tubes here. Never want to go into the boost tube. So this is going to connect here to the stock barb. We're going to take and we're going to add a length of hose to come around here where we're going to drill, tap, and put a fitting in there. And we also need a check valve in line on this one. Just like the other, cut your small piece, check the flow direction. This is going to flow away from the can on both the outlets. And it's simply going to go onto the can here. It's going to go into the T, and then this T here is going to come around and connect to a barb that we're putting in there.
Okay.
I'm overheating. So, some people choose not to drill and add this fitting. You can still make the system work by only using the driver's side, but it's best to use suction from both turbos. That's when it's the most critical and it's not evacuating from the factory. So, we've put a little grease on the drill bit to catch filings. That little bit of plastic is not going to do any damage. We're going to pick a spot low down close to the turbo. We're going to move and clean away any of the plastic. We're going to then use the tap. You only want to screw that tap in about halfway so you're not cutting too deep on the threads. You can use your hand because this is soft plastic. You can use the pliers, a little crescent wrench, and you're only going to cut about halfway in. Once we have the threads cut, back the tap out. We're going to take a 90-degree fitting and right here, and we're going to screw that in. And as you can see, that fits in there nice and leak-free with the tapered threads. And we're going to do a hose from our T over here, come around under the throttle body and connect to that fitting there. And this is using the inlet suction of both turbos, which BMW does with their twin turbo, GM does with their turbos, but they don't use intake manifold vacuum, and Ford only uses intake manifold vacuum. You need both if you're going to be pressurizing the intake manifold, because you want full-time evacuation. Again, no clamps are needed on any of these. So you can see we have completed the install. We've got the hoses all set nicely. We're going to put the engine cover back on.